I'll give you a brief outlook what's going to happen today. I will first of all show you guys some priming videos. What these priming videos is, it allows you to get a glimpse of the inner world, the panoramic world, that's the world around you, and the world that exists outside of the panoramic. And I'm doing that because in order for me to access those parts of your thinking process to be able to safely navigate you through the courtrooms, you're going to have to kickstart that. The other element of it is the corruption that's found in your language. Believe it or not, me and you are speaking a language known as Babel. Okay? And the only reason why you're able to understand me in a fairly cognizant way is because your subconscious is going in and missing and placing all the missing words so it can reconstruct everything that I'm saying and give it to you an accuracy of around about 95%. I am actually speaking to you as I am speaking to you in a language known as Babel. And it is called Babel. Okay? The processes that allows that to happen, the mental processes that allows that to happen is part of the subconscious mind. And that's what I'll be speaking to you to. My personal covenant with you guys is that 5 o'clock when you leave, not one of yous here will ever see the world again as it is. That I promise you. If you do not feel that has happened, take your donation and we call it quits. And that's my covenant with you. What your covenant with me is, all depends upon you, and I'll leave it to you. But that is what I say I'm going to do. By the time it finishes today, every single one of you will have enough information to be able to pull down any judge on this planet. It doesn't matter if it's a low-ranking judge or a high-ranking judge. You will be able to keep him at check at your worst case scenario and dismiss him in the best case scenario, or as a desired scenario, hold him to become a duty-bound, honor-bound fiduciary. Okay? So, with the videos, I'm going to show you the inner workings of the cell. Inner workings of the cell. Something that we know people saw into when they looked down the barrel of a Royal Rife microscope. They were able to pierce the cell membrane and move into intercellular material where they got a glimpse of the world inside of a cell, as complex as anything else. Why do I need to do that? Because I need to reach into those things which you already know exist. Okay? And then I'm going to take you out into the terrestrial world, or by the video, and show you the complexity of your world that you tread upon, and then take you out into interstellar material. And then I'll bring it to a stop, and I'll introduce you to the subject matter today, which is the law. How law works, why it doesn't work, why some people can access it and some people can't. I will teach you how to move in the corridors of kings and queens. I will teach you how to use the same conduits, and they're called conduits, that royalties use, the most vile and disgusting people on this planet use, as well as some of the subspecies that exist on your planet. And I'll introduce you to the world of the species of man and women. You may think of it as psychological type, but like most things, like looking down a barrel of a microscope that only shows you dead material, you have yet to encounter the complexity of the man and women, as known as the species of men and women that exist in your world. Okay? That's what I'll be doing. So I'm going to go straight into the video. What you guys saw there may be perhaps 1/1000th of what actually goes on in the dynamics of what we call a cell. Just probably 1/100000th. That's just my guess. We actually know little or nothing about the workings of anything in our world. Most of us are running around in a world of assumptions and presumptions. And that's where the courts always triumphs over you. Because while you are thinking in presumption and assumptions, they give you the assumption, the presumptions, and they just remove it or cancel it out. And hence you take no jurisdiction in a courtroom whatsoever. The mechanism for that is very well known to me. And that's a process that the subconscious does. And it's called stand down, and they get your subconscious to stand down. They do it out of pure ignorance. They don't know the workings of it, but they've been trained to use certain words, like sit down. Now sit down. There's no way that you can tell a man or a woman to sit down. You talk to me like that, I'll tear you to pieces. It don't matter where I am. And if I'm in a courtroom, it's almost certain I'll triumph. Because a courtroom is a level playing field. It's a level playing field. Nobody ever goes into a courtroom where the tennis player is sitting 10 foot up there and the other guy is 10 foot below subterranean. That's not a level playing field. They are lying to you from the moment that you get a summons or a letter all the way into the courts where they do what's known as the reaping. And it's called the reaping. And the reason why they reap is because they need to add value to the fiat money that you run around in. And the only way that they can add value to that is to give you some of that empty fiat money, and you convert that into what is known as sweat equity. You've now given it gold. Because the only thing that is worth anything is that which you earn by your own efforts. And they don't do anything for their efforts. That's why they pillage, rape, murder, and so on and so forth. The conversion process, for that conversion process to take place, most of you would understand as the banking system and so on and so forth. How they get it off of you is what most people do not understand. And that is what I'm here also to give you. The mechanism takes place in the courts. These courts have been in existence for thousands of years, where they give you the fiat money, and when you convert that into sweat equity, they take it away from you, either stealth or direct or indirect. Okay? They might do it by VAT, they may do it by income tax, but they will take it off you. Anything up to 90% will be taken off you. A few percentage of it you get to keep. But also, if you are of a particular demographic, demographic comes from the word diabolos, yeah, the grass of demons. If you make enough of it, they will make sure that your children, you never inherit your wealth. Because if your children inherit your wealth, they will not be able to get the child to work. So they'll strip it from you. The mechanism to do that is very well known. You guys all know it. It's called inflation deflation. Pumping up the economy and then removing the fiat currency where the money circulation is poor. That's one of the mechanisms. The courtrooms are used as a conduit to remove what's known as commercial energy out of you and pump it into those places where they don't have commercial energy, whether that be the Regis, which is the Queen, or the Vatican, or the IMF family. Okay? Those are the mechanisms. Now, I'm going to show you another video. This video is about the terrestrial world. This is the world that you guys walk around in, how beautiful it is. And yet very few people have access to it. 99% of the world population don't have access to their own lands, let alone the things that they grow from it. Yeah? So the reason why I'm doing that is to give you a grasp of how much is actually missing out of one's life. And yet, it's just there, sitting right there. Okay? The other reason why I'm doing that is to be able to drive home the fact that you guys are being raped. You don't see life, you don't get to hear life, you don't get to talk about life, and you never take possession of your own lives. They make sure of that. But by 5 o'clock, that ain't going to happen no more. That's done something to you guys. My ambition is that it's opened you up to let you know that with all this knowledge, nobody here really gets to keep what they make. They're not in possession of their own thoughts. They're not in possession of their own bodies. You don't get to inherit your own wealth, not from your parents, from your grandparents, or anybody else. You don't ever get to speak about the here and now jurisdiction. You express opinions in the past and in the future, but your language does not facilitate anything of a here and now jurisdiction. I'm sure not a single person here has the ability to speak in the here and now jurisdiction. You won't be able to do it. The reason why is because your language is engineered in such a way that you only ever are speaking something in the future. Sorry, that's the future there. I sometimes get confused which direction it is in. You only get to speak in the future, and as we all know, every single person here is an expert in the future, even though they have no possession of it and do not know what's going to happen the next second. And of course, as I meet historians and 1,001 other people that have read books and so on and so forth, they are experts on the past. They can give me a minute-by-minute account of what happened to World War II, what the temperature of the coffee of Mr. Hitler was, and so on and so forth. And they cannot tell me a single thing, not a single thing, what is happening in the here and now jurisdiction, in the first-hand knowledge, first-person knowledge. Cannot do it. 25 years ago, when you got married, your wife was your wife, and you was her husband. That's a farming term. Your wife was given to you as your property, and you are the animal husbandry of that property. That's a farming term. Women, of course, objected when they got to understand that as the women's rights movement took off. But essentially, that's what it means. It means that you're a husband and you're practicing animal husbandry. That's what that is. Let's take those terms and put it in present terms. Your language has now been changed for you, where you are not really husband and wife. What you are is partners, which is a corporation language. It's a language of corporations, because partners exist in businesses. So your wife now becomes your partner, and you become her partner. You think you are speaking language in a language that you think is English, but almost every 25 years, your language is changed for you, almost as if to say you might as well be speaking Chinese or any other language apart from the language that matters. The correct word for your husband or your wife is your mate. That's the language of nature, your mate. And the reason why, and they have all these things in legislation and statutes and so on and so forth, the reason why you cannot inherit your health, that's what my speciality is. The reason why you cannot inherit your health is because you're a human, and human beings are monsters. That's their definition. You'll find that in the dictionary, Bullentin's dictionary. You are a monster, and a monster may not inherit its wealth. It shall not inherit anything. Not the blood, and not your children, your offspring. You have no offspring. Okay? In corporate jurisdiction, your children are the property of a corporation. And that's what a child means. Yeah, that's why if you take the child out of school without the corporation's permission, they fine you. Just as a factory worker would be fined for breaking, shall we say, factory laws. Essentially, the land that you're living on at the moment is the law, or known as the policies, of, let's say, Ford Works. Yeah, that's what that is. You have no access to law. You don't have access to anything except mitigation of policies. So when you go before a court, it's usually, the court is a corporate court. In a magistrate or any other court, it's usually a corporate court. And they treat you like an employee, yeah? Which is, whatever the policy of that day is, of that factory floor, is what you're given. And it is about money. It's about exchange of your sweat equity to remove it, so you are always kept in perpetual work. Okay? At this stage, I'll take a couple of questions because I've made some very profound statements. As the day rolls on, I will qualify each and one of those statements. Any questions? Random questions is perfectly fine.
Usually is that a child means?
Sorry, I beg your pardon?
Is that a child means?
It's a property of a corporation. Yeah.
What's the question, sorry?
A child, what does a child mean? It means it's a property of a corporation. There have been many, many cases where a corporation, whether that would be a company, will take over a child. Yeah. A very famous case was twins. The advertising agency used those twins and then just claimed that twins as their own. And the parents couldn't get it back. They could not get it back. And after 25 years, they managed to get the twins back, but under terms and conditions. How does this happen? How does this happen? It's because you guys have no law, you have no codes, and you don't have access to those avenues and venues. Okay? When I started off this, the studying of the law and so on and so forth, I decided to hold seminars for Jim Humble to bring his technology into Britain. And I knew the moment I did that, the newspapers, the pharmaceutical industry, which are exceptionally vile, they have a history, and their history, this is the pharmaceutical industry, their history is in the Dark Ages, when they burnt all the witch doctors and the witches and so on and so forth. They weren't witches, they weren't doctors, they were healers. And they took over their industry. Something that they do to this day is just that you don't know it. Because in those days, it was acceptable priming to say these people were witches and possessed of demons and so on and so forth, because they always was healthy in times of hardship and so on and so forth, because they knew how to look after themselves. So the nation was primed to believe that they were witches and so on and so forth. Yeah, and very easy to burn. It is incredibly easy to convert anybody into believing anything. That is why the stratification of beliefs in your world is so absurd that human beings, which means monster, will go to any lengths to practice their beliefs and any length to protect those beliefs. You just name one and you'll find a particular point in history, not so far away, where that's what they've practiced. It doesn't matter what it is, however absurd it is, it's happened already. That's the length people will go to protect their beliefs. Okay? There is a reason why for that. The people that run your secret societies, the head of the Freemasons, what's known as Master Masons, and there are many others as well. Jack Otto wrote about a particular group of them. Look it up, Jack Otto, in his book, World War III. Okay? What they do is these are the people that engineer your language. And that language is so very, very important. The reason why it's so important is because this is what enables your mental processes to take place. Okay, I'm going to put a full stop to that, and I'm going to come into an analogy. This is a hardware, and I'm going to liken this hardware to the hardware in your brain system, the CPU of your brain system. Okay, like for like. What creates this laptop? What gives it animation, okay, is the operating system. To bring that hardware, that static hardware, life, give it life as it were, it needs an operating system. That operating system in this particular laptop is called Ubuntu. And I can't pronounce it properly, but one of you can probably help me pronounce it.
Ubuntu.
Thank you very much. I always call it Ubuntu. I don't know why, but it just rolled. That's what I call it.
That's something else.
That's what this operating system is. It takes up a very small percentage of the hardware in there. A very small percentage as opposed to the rest. And it works seamlessly. It requires no antivirus, no malware, no nothing. It's hack-proof, and nothing can get into it because it's worked on a kernel. A kernel that's mathematically sound. And that kernel is the operating system of that laptop. Once installed, it will just keep running as long as this hardware is okay. It doesn't get overheated and so on and so forth. It requires no updates. It's completely free. It will take a few hours to install. And it will do everything all the other softwares enable you to do. But it will do it for free. Okay? Let's step back a little bit. Let's say you now have a Macintosh, or that's what we used to call it nowadays, Macintosh, but you'll know it as an Apple. It operates on a Linux, which is essentially this. And he came along and said, well, let's make it look a little bit more interactive, a little bit more sexy, a little bit more aesthetic. Yeah, but let's not corrupt the kernel. Let's keep the kernel. But let's just make the hardware look very sleek. And that's how he makes his money from it. That's a very sound business model. Then another business model comes along. It uses the same hardware. It takes the near perfect operating system, which is free, and at the very core of it is the kernel, and it's called a kernel. And there they go in and corrupt that kernel. And once you corrupt the kernel, you have to constantly feed that kernel to keep it safe. It requires 1,001 industry to make that kernel operate. It requires malware, antivirus, upgrades, so on and so forth. It's the perfect business model for making money. You take what it works perfectly fine and you corrupt it, and you live off the corruption. That operating system is called Microsoft. Microsoft. And anybody that understands finance would know you will have to support Microsoft, because any corrupter of anything is where the money is. So let me parallel that with, say, Monsanto. You have a seed, no matter what seed it is a perfect kernel. It can replicate itself trillions of times seamlessly without any fault. It requires little or nothing, sunshine, water, and a little bit of soil, and it will do its business. They come along and they go into the very kernel of it and they corrupt it. And it requires 1,000,000,001 industries to support the corruption of it. Because if you consume it, you'll become ill. The plant is ill. It requires fertilizers, it requires pesticides. It even requires something to make it germinate, which is known as terminator seed, known as terminator seeds. And they spray that in your atmosphere. What is it that I'm getting at? Interfere with the kernel of an operating system, and you have corruption in your hands, and you can live off that corruption for the length of that lifespan of that business. Okay? Now comes you and me. What gives yourself access to your memories, your thinking, into the world of the subconscious and then the unconscious? What is it that gives it that operating system? What's that called? Have a guess.
Language?
It's your language. It's the words that you use. The words that you use is what enables your brain to go into the right places to access and retrieve the information that it needs from this vast space that it has, which is known as the unconscious. It will retrieve that and bring it out for you, and it will show you the answer. You corrupt the language, you are forever seeking an answer. That's known as a rift between the conscious and the subconscious mind. Hence, human beings, or man and woman, is an empty vessel floating in a sea of space. Maritime expression. Maritime expression. If I found a vessel floating in a sea of space, and if I put my ideology, one example, or my cargo into that vessel, I can claim it as my own. And it doesn't matter whether it's one religion or the other. But they have put an operating system into that vessel and they claim it as their own under salvage. Look it up. It's under salvage. They actually have a law to be able to do that. You might understand it as canon law. My job here is to remove the corruption from the operating system. Once you remove the corruption of the operating system, you are now in possession of your own thoughts. Your thinking becomes so accurate that the answers you require will be retrieved from this vast space that it has. Okay? And it has huge amounts of data there. At this moment, you're unable to access it because of the cancelling out words. There are cancelling out words in your language. When Miller, Federal Judge David Wayne Miller, Miller, beg your pardon, I mix up words occasionally because I speak a language called Babel, you see. When he pointed out those things which he found, it swapped a lot of things in my head. For example, any vowel followed by two consonants means the very direct of what you think it means. For example, like Aborigine. AB, as you know, means no, abnormal. You get that word and you put it in and you call a person an Aborigine, it means no origine person. And this level of corruption is everywhere. And there are millions of these words floating around in your head. They cancel you out. So you think you are speaking a language, whereas in fact you're moving one step forward and one step back. And they just live on that corruption. For example, if I make an accusation, I put you in an impossible situation where you have to defend your accusation. Well, what do we call that? They ran those courts in Spain, and they killed a lot of people over that.
Inquisition.
Sorry?
Inquisition.
Thank you very much. I can't hear properly. You'll have to shout it out properly. What's it called?
Inquisition.
That's the world that you're living in at the moment. Yeah? Because their language now slightly changed and they call you a defendant. They bring you in as a defendant. And if you take possession of that word defendant, they get you to believe and you are forever, forever defending yourself. An impossible situation to do so. So, let me just get a little bit antagonistic. Why are you so ugly?
It's just a reflection of you.
It's a reflection of me. That's a witty answer. That's a witty answer. So, now that I know he has wit, let me see if I can catch him out in other ways. Why did you park your car there?
I walked. I don't have a car.
He walked. He's a pedestrian. I can't place any claim upon him because he's really quite good at deflecting me. That's called deflection. He's using deflective techniques. Okay?
Next one.
So, if I send you a parking ticket and I say you owe us £50 for parking here, and I put you in a situation where you have to defend yourself, you now have to defend yourself while you parked your car there. Can somebody tear that to pieces for me?
Sorry, Mark, could you repeat that?
I sent you a parking ticket, Ray. You parked your car outside of your house where it's a double yellow line because I put that there last week. Okay? You owe me 50 quid for it. Can you defend yourself, please? Why did you park your car there? It's a double yellow line.
I actually parked.
Sorry?
Are you actually parked?
Sorry?
Are you actually parked? Have they put the label on you that might not be true? Are you assuming you parked because you stopped?
Yeah. They're letting you take presumption. Letting you take jurisdiction of your presumption. Because parking means to leave your car and go. That's what parking means. So if they pull you over and they accuse you of parking there, no, I stopped there. And as the judge of this vehicle, because that's what your license allows you to do, navigate maritime expression, it is you, with your own volition, your thinking, have stopped there. And you don't have the right to question me, because I'm the judge of this vehicle. Go away. You're no longer a defendant, you're in possession of your own mind. You know there's the difference between a parking and stopping. That type of questioning is known as a leading question. It's a leading question. I'm not actually asking you anything. I'm actually telling you, and then putting you in an impossible situation where you're defending yourself. So, when I draw up my papers for people, this is what I do. I say, he who makes the claim provides the evidence. He who makes the accusation provides the evidence. He who makes the statement qualifies their statement. Full stop. And that full stop is very important, because if you are not in possession of your own thinking, you're constantly running in your mind and justifying your position. Who am I? I'm a man, full stop. If you want to make a claim with me, show me the evidence, full stop. One sentence, one meaning. One sentence, one meaning. And every sentence must have a fact. If I make an accusation, I must provide the evidence or leave. Okay? Full stop. And that full stop in your thinking process is very, very important. It is so important that if you ever try to justify your position, I've got you, because that's called mitigation. Because if you mitigate as to why you are doing the things that you're doing under your own judgment, that means you're not a judge. You don't have the capacity, the facility to be able to think in your own mind that you're a judge. Okay? Means that you are not in possession of your own thoughts. So, those people that have gone into court will know, if they're gone in conventionally, with the assumption that the judge is there for their benefit and the benefit of justice, you will quickly know when you come out you've just been raped, you've just been buggered. I think it's one and the same word. You have been damaged. You have been anything but what you thought you went in for. And you thought the judge was there to create a level playing field where you're going to have equal rights, where you're going to have equal time, and they're going to make sure that everything is safe for you. That doesn't happen, does it? It never happens. One of the tricks that they use to be able to move you out of your frame of thought is an interruption. It's called an interruption. It was taught to them by these NLP, whatever you call it. NLP started off as a really good stuff to help people, yeah, to develop the person, the man, the woman. But they use it to interrupt. One of the ways that they interrupt your frame of thought is just simply go like this. Or to intimidate you, security. Yeah? Or to get their gavel and smash it on the table. All this is a facade. If there is an element of fear in you, it will grip you. Yeah? It will grip you. And then, of course, you're no longer in possession of your own thought and your own mind. And then they got you. So, what is an interruption? How does it work on a psychological level? How does that work? How many of you, by the way, have seen some of my presentations? Hands up, please. Well, thank you very much. All right. So one of the things I do there is I draw a box, an ordinary two-dimensional box, and I get everybody to look at it. Yeah? And I say to you, keep looking at it, and it'll change direction. That's what happens, doesn't it? The box changes its elevation, whether that be a side elevation, left elevation, or right elevation, but it changes dimension. Your brain's ability to be able to sift through, to be able to turn the image around for you to get another elevation to it, is the activity of your subconscious mind. When that happens, it swaps. And that's called a trance state. If you catch a person while that's happening, you can put them into a subconscious state. You can hypnotize them like that. Click of a finger. Yeah, very easy to do. They take those things which nature gives you and use it to corrupt, just as Microsoft will do with the operating system, just as Monsanto will do with their seeds, their Terminator seeds. The entire thing is a corruption. And they're able to do that because of the constant lying that they perform on you. Constant lying. So when that box is changing, you're now seeing things in a different way. Now let me give you an example. You are making a statement, you are making a case with me. And you've put your case really quite beautifully. And you've got me to see exactly what you want me to see. Guess what I do? I come along and interrupt his train of thought. It just swaps, just as that box swaps. Now he's talking about something else. And I can do that verbally, or just by giving you the impression the case is dismissed. Nothing of the sort has happened. These are purposeful disruptions that they place upon you in order to take away your frame of thought. Okay? Everybody up to speed as to what I've just said? When they do things like that to me, I get a little bit cheeky. I become witty. And I say to them, because I know what that courtroom is, I say to them, do you require help with your binding? I have some maritime rivets here. Would you like to bind your documents together? Like I have. And I'll show it to them. Yeah, I perform the same trick because I'm like that. I'm a bit cheeky. I like cheeky things because I'm not frightened of them. The reason why I'm not frightened of them is because thanks to David Wynne Miller, he taught me the bureaucracies to be able to safely navigate your way into any courtroom, and it doesn't matter which courtroom, because all courtrooms on this planet are one courtroom. They are one. Yeah, it doesn't matter if it's in Antarctic, it doesn't matter if it's Britain, it doesn't matter where it is. If it's got a letterbox, it's one jurisdiction. Okay, so the bureaucracy that allows me to safely maneuver into their court and say what I need to say in a dignified way, with a little bit of witticism, because you like to have a little laugh and joke as well, and to be able to safely move myself outside of the court, where I'm not going to be threatened with security, which they can call, and I say, well, thank you very much for the security. Thank you very much. I will use them when I need them. That tells them, you are not in control. I am in control of this. Full stop. Yeah? The bureaucracy is very simple. It's so simple, it's always in front of your face. And now comes what will appear as absurd statements. These people that corrupt the language go out of their way. They go out of their way to tell you the truth. Out of their way. And if they can't get the truth out to you, they'll make documentaries to get the truth out to you. In fact, it's at the very core of their disturbance. If they do not put things into plain sight, your subconscious will pop out because it can spot everything and anything. Your subconscious has the ability to see 18 kilometers away, smell everything in this room, just as my pet dog once could. He passed away. I kid you not, guys, the activities of the subconscious mind are so keen that it is just like your pet dog. It has all the senses it requires to be able to safely navigate yourself from this point to that point using your own senses. And if you lie to it, just as a lie detector test will point out, your subconscious will pop out and say, liar, liar, liar. Fight him or make flight. Run away or, flight or fight. Okay? So it's really important for them to be able to constantly put things in the open jurisdiction, and that's known as open flags operation. And they'll go to great lengths to even use the right words. Terrorism attack. Terra means Tara. It means earth. Earth attacking you. There's only one people that can say that. That's usually your government. If it was somebody else attacking you, they will tell you so. It was a guerrilla attack. A guerrilla attack. They would use the right words. They would say, for example, they blew something up. They would make sure a bus was diverted, and on front of that bus, it will say terrorist attack. This is a terrorist attack. Those people that are clever or scholastic-minded will say, I spotted it, I'm clever than you are. You've just destroyed the very thing that they have trying to tell you. They have to constantly tell you the truth. If they don't tell you the truth, your subconscious will pop out and say liar, and it will work out the entire configuration of the lie and say, here's the evidence. Now you're convicted by your own hands. Now, the reason why I can get away with the things that I do and nobody really attacks me, not the courts, character assassination attacks, yes, they do that, is because they know their game is up. I know what their game is. I know their language. I know the operations that they use to shut down the subconscious mind. I know the words, the bureaucracies, the entirety of it. I know it so well, I can refine it for them if they want. That's how well I know it. Yeah? I knew I had to protect myself. Okay, so I learnt their law. And I learnt it 1,000 times better than they know it. 1,000 times better. That's quite easy to do, because it's a bloody lie. It's a lie. You have law, but you don't have access to law. I know what the law is, and it's about an A4 piece of paper. How long does it take me to read that? Then you have statutes, which are volumes. And what are statutes? They're status. They are statues. Statues. Lifeless things. What is a legislation? It is a leg of a statue. These are the literal meanings. What is an act? It is an act of a statue. It's acting out. Their job is to make sure that you do take jurisdiction of statutes, where you can just babble and babble and babble and be found guilty, take your money and leave, if you are not in possession of your own thoughts. Because he who makes the accusation provides the evidence. You are now back into the jurisdiction of the law. That's the law. I can't come along and say, you owe me £500. Where's the evidence for it? I need to show contract has taken place. That contract doesn't exist. The claim has to be vacated, does it not? Agreed?
Yes.
Unless he is silly enough, and he is very silly, he writes back to me and says, well, I don't really owe you £500. As far as I know, it was never £500. He's just made contract with me. Now we go to court as to how much I'm going to get out of him. That's called contract. So I say to him, he owes me 500 quid, judge. I want that 500 quid, and I want £150 for being here, and cab fare and so on and so forth. It's now 250 on top, so it's 750. Because he was silly enough to make contract. The rest is now just mitigated until he puts a full stop to it and says, he who makes the claim provides the evidence.
So what are you talking about there, Mark? Are you talking about a counterclaim?
No, they're not counterclaims. They're nothing of the sort. They're not counterclaims or anything.
Does it make a difference if I sign some kind of term or agreement that they show in something with my signature?
I'll come on to that in a minute. So, full stop. Next subject. I'm going to go back in a little bit of time, because as you know, I'm an expert in the past. I have a minute recording of it, but I know nothing about the past. I'm making little sarcastic jokes now and then to just give you an idea how the scholastic mind can work. It creates a reality which does not exist. Once you're in that reality, you will not be able to escape it, because all you'll be doing is mitigating how ignorant you really are. Never get yourself into that position. I get a document through the letterbox, and it asks me to sign my name on it. Okay, I'm quite law-abiding, I'm quite happy to sign it. It's making me some sort of an offer. I have no idea what it really means, but I sign it. And a signature is a cursive. A joined up writing is called cursive. When you place your cursive in that rectangular box, that's your coffin. And you have put your cursive into that rectangular box, which is your coffin. And a cursive is the language of dead people. It means to do evil upon people. And it's the language of the dead. Full stop. Now let me qualify that statement, how profound a statement that really is. As you know, all of yous are dead. And have no mistake, you are dead. Because every mailing you get is all in all caps. You are all caps. You are dead people, just as in a gravestone. Yeah? You are floated dead under maritime law of bankruptcy. Because you don't ever get to keep your wealth, your gold, or anything. It all belongs to the people that are floating your country. All caps is what you find in gravestones. Is that right? How do I get you to take jurisdiction of the fact that you are dead? I engineer the language, get you to believe you are incapable and you don't need to perform an autograph. I'm not going to ask Angelina Jolie for her signature. I'm going to ask her for an autograph. Because an autograph means an autonomous person, man or a woman, in possession of their own thought. The graph is the graph of your autonomy. That's why it's called an autograph. But I get you to sign. What does that mean? It means that your subconscious, that knows all these words, know what an autograph is and what a signature is and what a cursive is, because you've been primed to do so. It's all in your language. And they just choose the language that they want you to take jurisdiction over, and that's the operating system that you guys run on. So you run on the world of all caps as floating dead people, putting your signature upon things, and so on and so forth. Okay, it's your language. And the language is going to be altered today, so they no longer can get away with such things. To explain further how corrupt and the length that they've gone to alter your language is also, if you are floating dead people, you will not ever see life. You will not see life. You will never hear life. You will never speak of life. You will make no contract with each other, and you shall have no covenant with your God. Those are the 5 things that are engineered into your language. How do they do that? When's the last time any one of yous has drawn up contract with each other, where you have come upon something and you agreed upon that's what you're going to do? Anybody here can do that? Draw up a contract for themselves with another person? Congratulations. Anybody else? Oh, Mr. Carl there as well. How many of you have seen life, as it were? How many of you have seen life? How many of you have seen intercellular matter? How many of you seen red blood cells or your cells under a microscope? Put your hands up a little bit more, please. That's quite a lot of people. And hence, probably that's why you're here. In your medical fields and in the NHS, samples of any living tissue is forbidden. In fact, when Rife created his Royal microscope that can see living tissue, living cells, they burnt his laboratory down. Yeah? It's really quite important for them that you never see life, because if you see life, your subconscious kicks in.
Wow.
It kicks in. How many of you think, for example, that the Earth is a greenhouse floating around in space? How many of you believe that the earth and the air that you breathe and so on and so forth is a finite thing? And that oil, oxygen, air, water is all finite. That's all going to run out. 99% of the people will believe what they are told. So, just to give it a little bit more example, to the extent that they go to, they will get a philosophy of global warming, tell you that the earth lives in a greenhouse and that you guys are locked into a greenhouse when there is no glass in the sky, and they'll come up with these all wonderful ideologies. And they'll create another group that goes for global warming or global cooling. And the two tribes, and it's known as the two tribes, go to war with each other. You remember that, don't you? Yeah? The global coolers went to war with the global warmers. We call that the bread and butter wars, because I went to war over his country because he butters his bread on the other side, which is, I know, is the wrong side. It's called bread and butter wars. And these wars are running all the time in your world to keep you divided, keeping you believe this is the right side and that's the wrong side. And while that's happening, they'll slip in between that, global engineering, known as climate control. While your eye is off that and off that, warring with each other. That's called Fabian philosophy. They do that with armaments and so on and so forth. So would you guys now agree there's a great deal of engineering going on in the world of ideology, in the world of language? Okay? I was listening to a video by Karl Lentz where he was talking about words, wordplay, parliaments and so on and so forth. And he was pointing out, say a man or woman goes before a judge and says, I suffered rape. Case dismissed.